Hey hoes, and what do you knows? I am your boy Snoof. You may also know me as Herniator, but tonight I am your boy Snoof alongside my boy. Sorry ladies, he's taken. That is my boy Treads. And this is our podcast.
Ah, tis it is.
This is the show Tis It Is. Buddy, I honestly was trying to remember where Tis It Is came from. Do you remember like who started that between us? Honestly, I don't even remember.
I'm almost positive it was you, but I don't know exactly where or when. That's literally probably middle school. I'm guessing. You've been saying that long.
Yeah, it's been a while. And maybe we'll find it along the way as we talk on this show.
Yeah.
But that's just
Perhaps.
something the two of us have always done. I don't think Tis It Is like a outlandish phrase. I think a lot of people maybe have heard that. That's weird, Tis It Is. I think it's funny. But what we love to do, is we take Tis It Is, like the format, and we use it for everything else. Twit it would. Twill it will.
Twir it were, yeah.
Yeah, twir it were. It's great. I don't know why that's not a thing. Like I don't think that. I think the Tis It Is part is like people have heard of that. I don't recall ever hearing a twir it were.
Yeah, no, only us.
So this is, and we abbreviated it to TII, which you could pronounce as T.
T?
Titty. However you want it to be. Titty. So, yeah, what are we doing here, Treads? What are we doing here?
Today or in general? What are we talking about?
In life? Whatever you want to, whatever.
What are we doing here? I don't know if we have enough time today to answer that question.
I lost the Incredibles.
Oh no. So today we are talking about an animation studio that both of us are very fond of. Everyone's fond of this animation studio, and Snoof's background there is kind of giving it away, but we are talking about Pixar. Pixar, everyone knows how innovative Pixar has been in the animation business for the last 20 years, 20 plus years that is. And I think when it comes to animated studios, really, there's some others that you can throw their name in the hat, but Pixar's kind of been the crown jewel of what you can kind of do with animation. And while the last, 7-8 years might be a little more rocky than when they started, I think as a whole, the body of work is just kind of incredible, for lack of a better word. So I think today we are going to have some fun talking about our personal favorites by drafting competitively to see who can kind of form the best overall list, whether we can take into consideration how much we personally love them or how much how important they are in the animation or in the Pixar game as a whole. So anything to add there, Snoop?
Dude, no, I'm excited. Like, I was discussing draft strategy with my wife. I was like, this is tough. Because I know, like, what my personal favorite is might not be the general consensus favorite. So, like...
Right. I'm same here.
Because as Tredge just said, we are doing this draft style, which means if I take Incredibles, he can't. It's off the board. And one of the main reasons we wanted to do that, I think, was... I think if we didn't draft, I think if we had free reign, do whatever you want, I think we'd have probably all 4 Toy Stories in our top whatever. I think it'd get real crowded, real kind of copy and paste a little bit. There definitely will be some shifts, though. So I think the draft style will make it a little more interesting.
Yeah, and I think you're kind of getting at it, but I think there's some strategy within that, even within cutting down to a draft. Like, do you take 3 Toy Stories and you take 3 of your... We are drafting 7 each, so 14 total titles, which is a pretty big chunk of what Pixar's done. I think that actually might be exactly half. I think they're at 28 films now, which is correct. Insane. Mm-hmm. And before we start, I do want to say, I think there's 4 of those 28 that I personally have not seen. So if you're like somehow watching this and like waiting for that title to be drafted, I'll just let you know ahead of time which ones you will not hear because I have not had the opportunity to see them. And I might have shown my hand a little bit, depending on if Snoof looked it up, but my personal ranking is publicly available in a Letterboxd list. If you follow me on Letterboxd at Treads, Quick plug. But I don't know if you looked at that at all before this to see, because I probably should have hidden that or something.
I honestly meant to. I promise you I meant to. I was like, I'm going to see what his... hand to God forgot. So
okay, well, that's good then. That's good. I was worried, like, well, he might know like what I need to take. So I'm really excited to see. There's a little bit. I do know a couple you're really high on that might be I need to take first, or a couple that I know you're high on that I'm hoping you take because I really don't want them. So
right.
We'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited to get into it. So what else do you have on Pixar?
Dude, well, first off, you said there's like 4 you haven't seen, buddy. After copying and pasting the full list, I was like, bro, I haven't seen 10 of these. Literally. I have not seen... The earliest one I have not seen is Brave, which came out in 2012. I just, for some reason, never saw that. Brave, Coco, Onward, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, Lightyear, Elemental, and Inside Out 2. 9. I have not seen. Which means the last one I saw was...
That's a big chunk of the list.
Yes. Toy Story 4 is the most recent Pixar movie I've seen. And that came out in 2019, pal. It's been almost 5 years. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy. I do think so. I think all 4 of the ones I have not seen, which are Soul, Lightyear, Turning Red, and The Good Dinosaur, were all within your 9 that you said you hadn't seen.
Yes.
So those 4 especially, because neither one of us has seen them, you will not hear. I know I've heard only good things about, especially Soul. So I am excited to see that eventually.
And Coco. Yep.
So it might be an advantage to me on a couple of those. There's a couple titles there that Snoof mentioned that I do like quite a bit. Maybe that means I can kind of nab them late in the draft because I'm confident he won't have to take them. But yeah, so I think you mentioned Inside Out 2. I think it's just good to kind of point out like Pixar is still just doing incredible numbers. I might be wrong about this, but I think didn't that just recently like become the highest grossing animated movie of all time?
I think it did. Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Right.
So yeah, Pixar is not going anywhere. Thank goodness. I think these more so than maybe any animation studio. I think they make movies that literally everyone can enjoy. When my wife and I went to see Inside Out 2, and there were children like loving the movie, and then we walked out and I was like, that movie wasn't for them. Like, oh my gosh, like those emotions, like they don't know what anxiety is. Like that's for us.
They think crazy. They know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's like, you talk about that one movie and literally anxiety and stuff, but you look at even back to Toy Story, how it all started. There's so much in that for adults can appreciate, and it just I feel like every time I watch it, there's something else I connect with, and I think a lot of the movies on this list, that's true about, and some less so. And I think maybe at the end we can talk about some of the ones where maybe we're not quite as high on, or why maybe a couple just missed the list. But yeah, I think we'll be ready to jump in. So what do you have to say about how we might want to start this experience here?
What I have to say is your idea. So I'm gonna pull a 7th grade me and just say what you just said. And it's going to get laughs.
Oh, gosh.
A little throwback to what I just said, 7th grade. I don't know how much of it I did, I don't think I was malicious with it, but we were in 7th grade. It was our history class, I think, together. And if you know Treads at all, you know he's a funny guy. You also might know that Treads, at first glance, is a little shy. I think he's a little shy. So what would happen is we would be sitting next to each other, and he'd say something funny, but he'd say it, to me. Not loud, and I'd pull that Key and Peele skit, and I'd say it loud, and then people would think I'm funny.
Yep.
And the fact that our friendship made it through that turmoil, I think we were set for life.
I think the only reason it made it was because eventually we were separated in that class because we wouldn't stop talking. So that's the only reason I'm still talking to you to this day, probably.
The only reason. Thank you, Miss Ivy. Little did Miss Ivy know what she was saying. Buddy. Yeah. So what you came up with, which I love the idea, is to determine the order of the draft. We're going to do a little trivia. And whoever wins the trivia gets the pick. And something we discussed that I don't know if we 100% landed on this or not. One idea we threw out there was whoever wins the trivia gets to pick whether they get the first overall pick or they can go second. But whoever picks second gets second and third overall pick. From there, it lightnings back and forth. It's not 1-2, 1-2, 1. It's not how it goes. Or 1-2-2, whatever. It's first overall pick, Whoever goes second gets second and third. So you have to decide whether you want that first overall pick or whether you're like, man, I want 2 back-to-back to really to seal the deal early. So that's what we're going to do. So I guess, pal, I didn't do this preemptively, but I guess I'm literally going to search like Pixar trivia. And hopefully I can find like a flashcard format to where I can't see the answer until I click something either. And we will go from there, and I will read these off to you.
You have the opportunity then right now to just completely lie. You missed it.
I'm answering stuff about Coco. Like, oh, yeah. Okay. So this does have answers on page 2. It's Trivia Tuesday. Join us every Tuesday for pop culture. Oh, this is like from This is from one of our favorite things. This is from one of our trivia nights. Yeah. Okay. Some of these I'm not going to... Like, the first question I'm not going to ask you because it's literally what was the first Pixar film to be made. I think it's a little easy. I honestly sometimes trip up and think it's Bug's Life. I don't know why. But sometimes
They're close. I mean, Toy Story was 95, I believe. And... Let me see. I wrote down...
I think it was 98.
Bugs... Yeah, you're right. 1998. Yep.
So like it's far enough apart.
Yeah.
It's far enough apart that to me like that should be common knowledge. But for some reason, I typically like wait. What is Bug's Life?
I think Bug's Life is just kind of forgotten in that stretch of those. Those first few movies are incredible, honestly, and I think Bug's Life is the one that kind of gets forgotten there, and maybe because it's kind of pushed off to its side, you might think it came first or something, which is understandable.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. Second question. I think it's a decent one. It's one that I can't answer, so I think it's a perfect question for you. Brave is set in which country?
Is it Scotland?
I'm gonna see if I'm gonna scroll just enough to where I can see your answer without seeing mine. It is Scotland forever. That is
that's
what
right.
it is. All right, so that's 1 point for Treads. The next question, you can tell me if you think, it's too easy. I don't think this is that easy. It's kind of easy, but I did have to think on it. In Monsters, Inc., what city do Mike and Sully live in? Is it not Monster City?
It might be. I'll give you that point. I don't know if I would have gotten there.
I think it might literally be Monster City.
If it's Monster City, you get the point.
Which is really lazy.
But that seems like something... I don't know if it's lazy or is it not?
It's Monstropolis.
Oh, okay. Okay, yep.
I was thinking, I know in that movie, in the opening scene where Sully's asleep on the bed and Mike's doing the radio, and he says something about Monster City. So I thought that's what it was. I guess he's just, giving it
I'm really upset not knowing that one. Wow.
Monstropolis. I wouldn't know. That wouldn't have been my second guess.
Yeah. I was scrambling there.
Fourth one, I think's a little too easy, but you tell me. We can decide together. What is the name of the talking dog in Up?
Doug.
Yeah. You think you're getting lucky here? Number 5, in The Incredibles, what is Frozone's actual first name? That's Lucius.
I don't know if I would have gotten that, so, yeah.
Let me confirm. I'm pretty sure it's Lucius. It is Lucius. Okay, so I'm at 1, you're at 2. Even though one of them is literally what Doug's name is.
I'm at 1, right? I think I'm only at 1.
If you want to...
Well, Doug, we would have both got Doug. Don't give that to me.
I think Doug, personally, is a little too easy. But if you're like, no, you know what?
No.
Leave it. Okay, so we're both at 1, though. But okay.
How are we doing this too? Like I don't get first.
I don't know. I do think
we're going to go until. So we're going to 25. And
win by 10. Yeah. This one I too think is a little too easy. In Cars, Lightning McQueen finds himself stuck in what town, pal?
That would be Radiator Springs.
I think that's.
We both know that.
This next one's about Coco. I can't answer for Coco. Do you want to listen? Did you see you did or did not see Coco?
I've seen Coco, yes.
Okay.
It's been Coco, a number of years.
What does Miguel's family make for a living?
Is it shoes?
Dun 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 dun. It is shoes.
Okay, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Give me that.
I feel like we definitely should have rehearsed this a little bit more. Like try to find like a consensus list. Because I feel like this one goes like from an easy question to kind of a hard question, like back and forth all over the place. So, for example, this next one I think is pretty easy. What is the address that Marlin and Dory are trying to reach in Finding Nemo? P. Sherman 42 Wallaby Way, Cindy.
Yeah, okay, alright. Honestly, I knew 90% of that, but I did not remember if there was a number at the beginning. So I might have missed that by Honestly, I'll give you that because I don't think I would have said. I would have been like, I don't know the number at the beginning.
All it says is 42 Wallaby Way, which I guess is
42.
correct.
Okay.
But I said P. Sherman 42 Wallaby Way, Cindy, which is the full address. This trivia.
Yeah. All right, we'll give you that. I think I would have got most of that, but I didn't even give an attempt, so that's not fair for me. I would have got it.
It goes back and forth so easily. Who is the leader of the food-stealing grasshoppers in A Bug's Life?
Oh gosh, what's his name?
What's his name, buddy?
Is it Hopper?
It is Hopper. I don't even have to look at it. Okay, yeah, it's Hopper.
Dude, I have not seen that movie in 15 years, at least.
Honestly, then great pull, because I watched that movie like 2 weeks ago.
I have not seen that I couldn't tell you most. Like, what's his Flick? Is that his name? I think.
Flick is the main character. Yeah. Is the
probably the only 2 characters I can name, but.
Okay, that's fine. That's not atrocious at all. This next one, I guess, would come to me. You tell me what you think about it. What sport does Riley play in Inside Out? And I know that is hockey. Yeah. I think that might be a little too easy.
Yeah, especially, I'll be honest, like, that's the huge plot point of the second movie, even. Like, it's even more pronounced, so.
That's what, like, from the trailers and stuff, it seemed like that was. So, yeah, I don't think. Mm-hmm. This next one, dude, this should be easy, but I don't know it. In the movie Ratatouille.
Hey, if you don't know it, let's just say if one of us gets this is the winner. It'll be the 3, right?
Okay. In the movie Ratatouille, who teaches Linguini how to cook? Can't remember his name. Oh, I know it. I got it. I think.
Wait, Linguini? Would it be
Linguini's? Remy. I could not think of Remy's name.
Oh, okay. I was thinking, like, who taught Remy, but...
Wait a minute. I never thought of the frickin' rat's name in years. Remy. Yeah. Okay, here's one that neither one of us will know. Apparently Wall-E stands for something?
No idea. Yeah,
I honestly need to look at that. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's another one that it's been a long time since I've seen it. Probably do a rewatch, honestly, for me.
Honestly. Waste allocation load lifter Earth is Wall-E. That would not have known that. That's the hardest question on this list by far. Yeah. You might know this one. At this point, we only have like 3 more questions. So let's just make it through this list and then we'll decide.
Okay, let's do it.
What are the names of the 2 brothers in Onward? I do not know.
Chris Pratt and Tom Holland.
I couldn't name you one of them.
I don't know.
I didn't see it. Okay, I'll look at that answer in a minute. Which Pixar movie features an... Oh, God. Apatosaurus. I wonder which Disney Pixar movie that could be.
It could be a trick question. What kind of dinosaur is Rex? I guess he's a T-Rex.
Yeah, well, it then says, like... Yeah. First off...
He's a plastic one.
It does say named Arlo. Making an unlikely human friend. So basically, if you saw a trailer for The Good Dinosaur, you know that's what that's about. Yeah. Gosh, we're finishing on some baby softball questions here, bro. In Toy Story, who is the sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance? Oh. I don't know. It's so stupid. I do want to see the name of the brothers in Onward. Ian and Barley.
Ian Barley.
Dude, shout out Ian Barley. What's he doing now? Thank you for your service and for your service. That sucked. Openly admitting that sucked. I think you knew more than I did. So I think it's only right.
I don't think I did.
I think it's only right to hand you the W for our first ever trivia. So congrats. It won't be.
That feels wrong because I definitely did not win that. But
well, you did know more.
I don't know.
Even if it comes at hands of movies that I haven't seen, that's a con against me, admittedly.
Well, I will graciously accept this victory.
What a guy. So now, buddy, you are tasked. Do you want the first overall pick in our Pixar draft, or do you want to yield and get 2 back-to-back picks in the second and third?
So my thought process here, I honestly think 2 and 3 is the better pick here because it's so deep. But with that being said, I literally could not walk away from this being okay with my list if I didn't get my number 1. So I'm taking number 1.
Okay. He has settled. He has settled in on Treads has been
I
awarded.
could not walk away. I don't think it would be your number one, but I'm too nervous it might be your second. So I'm taking number one.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Here we go. Kicking off the first ever draft on this show. Pixar Films, we're doing 7 apiece. Treads has been awarded first overall pick. Buddy, what is it?
All right, so I fully admit my number one, I don't think it's like a niche number one. I'm not going to pull out, I'm not saying Brave is number one. But I will say I do think this movie is often... I don't think it tops many people's lists as far as being number one. I think it's up in people's top 5 or so often. So what I say is not going to be crazy at all. But to me, this is far and away the one that every time I watch it, it makes me so happy. It's a 5-star movie in my opinion, and I'll talk more about it once I say the title, obviously. But my favorite Pixar movie, far and away, is 2001's Monsters Incorporated.
Crap. Oh! Yep.
I think it's a perfect... The one thing we're going to talk about, I think, consistently in these movies is the quality friendships, like buddy relationships a lot of these movies have that are just excellent really throughout. Almost every single movie, I feel like, features a really strong friendship you could talk about.
For sure.
And obviously you have, at the top, you have, Buzz and Woody you can talk about. But for me, man, Mike and Sully as a duo is just awesome. And one thing I love about it is, unlike in Toy Story where you spend the whole first movie, they're rivals and you kind of get there, you get thrown in, they're best friends from the second you start the movie.
Right.
So the whole, you're not learning, I don't know, you're not watching them become friends, they are friends. Obviously they have their, plot points that they disagree on things and get in their little fights, but you're never really worried that they're not going to work things out.
Right.
Their best pals, John Goodman as Sully and Billy Crystal as Mike Wazowski.
Fantastic.
2 phenomenal voice performances. Just I don't know, the movie just has everything you want in a Pixar movie. It has quality humor. The villains are great, both Waternoose and Randall.
The twist,
phenomenal.
The
villains.
twist of Waternoose, dude, is insane.
Yeah, great twist for a kids animated movie. The concept is just so cool too. How cool of a concept is all those doors are floating around. I love it. As a kid I loved it. As an adult I love it. I think that's so cool. Their batteries and stuff being fueled by the screams, and then you figure out the laughter. All this stuff is just so cool. The character designs are cool. Mike Wazowski is iconic for just he just looks so stupid, but he's awesome. He's great. So I love Monsters Inc. Also, another thing we can talk about in a lot of these movies is his first name John Ratzenberger, that he's in all these movies?
That's a good question. I don't know.
The voice is he's in. I think he's in literally every single Pixar movie.
He's Ham, he's Mac, he is in everyone.
And
yes, okay.
Him as the Yeti in this is so great. One of his best, if not. I probably wouldn't put it above Ham, but it's one of his best. I think it's so good. But yeah, so that's my number one. And like I said, I think 2 and 3 might be the better play here because the top of this, you're going to get 2 phenomenal movies. But I would have never forgiven myself if I didn't get Monsters Inc. So I had to take it.
That's fair, dude. I had Monsters Inc. at the lowest. If it remained untouched, I had Monsters Inc. at the lowest at 3 on mine. And I think that's low, honestly. It is. It's so great. And I think every Pixar movie is so great for being a unique story, a well fleshed out, so creative. Dude, Monsters Inc. has to be probably the most creative one, I think.
I mean, you could argue that about so many of these, but it's up there. Yeah.
It's so good, dude. Obviously, I had another example in my mind just now, and then I immediately lost it. I guess WALL-E. WALL-E's entirely thought up. It's entirely imaginative. But I think Monsters Inc. is too. It's so good, dude. And you alluded to it. I think Mike and Sully might be my favorite duo of Pixar. I think they're fantastic. Yeah. I think you can tell from the voice actors' performance as well, the writing. They're best buddies. You don't have to be convinced at all that they are anything but best buddies. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that dynamic duo. Give me them over any. I would take them over Woody and Buzz. I would.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would too.
had to clear my throat, so I muted my mic. All right, Favs, anything else you want to say about your first overall pick, which is a freaking great one in Monsters, Inc.?
I mean, again, I think if people are like grading these lists, that might lose me a couple of points because I know there are maybe a couple that are more just fan favorites. Not that this one's not up there for people, but for me, I had to get it on my list. But I am really curious to see. I think these next two picks from you are very interesting because that's huge to get the next two. So anxious to see what you do here.
My first overall pick is going to be to nobody's surprise. My first overall pick, which is the second pick in the draft, I'm going to take The Incredibles. Now, honestly, I think people are, and for good reason, I'm not saying you shouldn't be, I think people are much more down on The Incredibles than they are Monsters, Inc., or honestly a lot of major Pixar titles. And I can see that. I think The Incredibles, obviously being like superhero focused, that might lose some people. I think if you go back and rewatch it, maybe if it wasn't one of your favorites before, go back and rewatch it. It is so good. We talked about the dynamics of like Mike and Sully. The family dynamics in this movie are fantastic between Bob and oh crap. What's Elastigirl's real name? I know it, dude.
I should know too.
Oh God.
You sure you like this movie?
Yeah. Never mind, I hate this movie.
Is it Helen? No, wait.
Helen.
Yeah, okay.
It is Helen.
No.
Yeah. So the relationship between Bob and Helen, both as a married couple, as a couple with kids, it's so relatable, I think. The kids are great. Frozone's fantastic. Syndrome is, I think, one of the most underrated villains in movies, dude. Sincerely, I think Syndrome is fantastic. It's a symptom of Mr. Incredible's actions from frickin' 15 years ago. Comes back to bite him, and I just think Syndrome's fantastic. I think this movie, for me, is a 5 out of 5. I get chills when I watch it still. I love it. It's not like as laugh-out-loud funny as some of these other options. It might not hit you in the feels exactly like, Finding Nemo might, but I think it's just overall fantastic. Well, you got any thoughts on The Incredibles?
No, I love it. I think it's a good pick this high. I don't know that I agree necessarily that people are down on it. Maybe I just haven't seen those. I think people are generally... I honestly think it's probably in the same tier as people put Monsters, Inc., where it's maybe not everyone's number one, but I think it cracks a lot of people's top 5, I would say. And I think it's great. I knew it was going to be your number one, which is... right. I think... I meant to say this in the intro when we were talking about Pixar. And one thing, I'm a big movie guy, obviously, and I always just think, I think people should love the movies they love no matter what, even if the media and critics and all the fans tell you it sucks. Love the movies you love. Yep. But even with that, people have some very niche favorites of things that's just whoa, that's against the grain. That's a weird pick. But with Pixar, there are legitimately 12 of these movies that aren't even against the grain picks to be number one. I feel like they're legit arguments to be that's a good answer for your number one. And
right.
Incredibles is right there, man. That stretch, that's right in the stretch with Pixar just being on top of their game. This movie, 2004, so that's 3 years after Monsters, Inc., which is 1 year after Finding Nemo. What a run! It's just
they were on fire. Yeah,
banger after banger. But yeah, I love The Incredibles. One, I think. Maybe more so than anything else. If I picked one frame from Pixar that is just relatable for me, it's Bob in the freaking car, punch down. I feel that as a big guy, I feel that multiple times a week. I love that frame. But there's, like you said, so relatable, great family dynamic. Honestly, just a great superhero movie. And overall,
agreed.
It's great.
It's kind of like Spy too. How both Bob and Helen in their own methods have to sneak onto the island. That alone is fantastic. I think you get to see how they both use their powers. I think the scene of Elastigirl driving the jet trying to find Bob, and Syndrome launches the missiles at the jet, and they find out the kids are on board, and he's like, I don't care, I'm gonna kill them too, I don't care. That's one of the most intense scenes in our entire childhood movies. I think you back and watch it, it's intense, dude. It's really good. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's Pixar's just not afraid. They don't shy away from any of that. Whereas a lot of, kids movies and stuff do shy away from a lot of it's just this will be intense, but it's gonna be the best thing they've ever seen. So
yeah, it's good.
That's great.
That said, pal,
great pick.
I now get pick number 3, and I know what you're gonna take next. and I know what you're going to take next is a fantastic entry. So I'll be honest, I'm tempted to steal it. But I don't want to let this other one go. I really don't. I'm going to go with my gut.
I have two titles that I'm looking at that if you take one or the other, I feel like I'm just taking the other one.
That's okay. We'll that's kind of where I'm at too, and I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to take another one from around that same era. Give me Finding Nemo, baby. I think Finding Nemo, going off of immediate, first recall off the top of my head, there are only two of these movies that within the first 5 minutes got me, choked up. Up, which literally makes me cry in the first 10 minutes, and Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is so tragic in the first literal 2 minutes. And it sets this tone of, holy crap, this is serious. And I think it's so good, dude. And that I recently rewatched it, I think about 2 or 3 months ago. And I was texting you about it. I was like, dude, this is better than I remember. There are so many individual battles in this movie. Marlin obviously goes through 8 different things. Then Nemo's having to swim through the filter, and he gets stuck, and it doesn't work out the first time. And then Darla shows up, and they've got him in the bag, and Darla's gonna get him. There's so many little climaxes in this movie, so many. Then finally, once they get Nemo out, all the fish get sucked up in that net, and Nemo goes back in to save him. They create another climax. Dude, they did it over and over, and I think it's so good. I think the music from Finding Nemo is beautiful. It's so, relaxing. It's just a vibe. And I will openly admit that I love, aquariums and the ocean and just fish life in general more than probably the average person. But that just means Finding Nemo is that much more special to me, dude. I love it. You got anything to say?
I am upset because I know we're drafting 7, but there were 3 movies that I, really wanted on my list, and this is one of the 3. I think it's so good. I think it's interesting because as a kid, I always liked Finding Nemo. My younger sister loved Finding Nemo. I feel like most kids have a movie they kind of latch onto,
right.
And Finding Nemo for years was my younger sister's. She still loves it, and I think because maybe it was just so played in my house that as a kid, it eventually I kind of tuned out Finding Nemo a little bit.
Understandable. Yeah.
And then I don't remember. It's been a few years back that I rewatched it, and I was like, oh, this is great. If you haven't watched it in 5 to 10 years, go watch it again because it is absolutely phenomenal. It's beautiful. The ocean life stuff is just so well animated. So many great memorable characters, even if they're not in it. Bruce, very fantastic. Little screen time, but awesome. So many, Willem Dafoe as what's his name?
Gil. Yeah.
Gil. Yes. So it's so good. I think it features. A lot of these movies have good parent dynamics, but Marlin as just that stressed to the max parent, I have to go find my son. It's just so you root for him so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Finding Nemo is fantastic. I am upset that you starting with The Incredibles and Finding Nemo is a great start, and it kind of stinks for me because I really wanted that one, but I applaud the Pixar.
Yeah. Well, guess what, pal? You stabbed me in the heart with Monsters Inc., so we're even. That being said, now the floor is yours once again, and now that we're back to normal traditional draft, 1-1, all the way down. So with your second pick, pal, pick number 4 overall, what are you taking?
Yeah, I might lose this immediately because Monsters Inc. number 1 overall might have been a little risky considering I let you get 2 just absolute bangers. And I might just double down though and being a little bit pick for me instead of the general pick.
I've already typed it out. I know what you're saying. Just say it.
I know you know it's coming because I've been vocal about this. Oh man, this might not be popular, but I'm gonna try to convince people, I guess. Toy Story is, as a franchise, maybe the best animated franchise of all time.
It's up there, for sure.
There's a couple that you could argue that I think have decent arguments, but Toy Story is in that discussion,
mm-hmm.
I think, no matter how you slice it. And there are 4 of them, and I personally think all 4 are incredible movies. But there is one that, to me, just always has stood out as the strongest one. And it's not what people might think is the strongest one. So I'm taking, with my second pick, Toy Story 2.
I knew it, dude. I knew it. And I will obviously let you speak on it here in just a moment. You have converted me. That was not only would me taking it there have been 60% stealing it from you. True. The other 40%, dude, is genuinely. I rewatched it not too long ago. You're correct. I think it is the best Toy Story. I genuinely do. You convinced me. I was like, this dude's crazy. And I don't know why. I don't think I'm like in the minority necessarily and thinking like, no, that's like one of the worst ones.
You're not. That's the thing. I think it's such a common, and I think there's different things that go into it. I think people, the first one is great. Like it is. It's the first one that kicks things off. Like it's great. The third one has that ending, which is like, maybe it might be the best ending in a Pixar movie ever. Like maybe, I don't know. Oh. And there's great things in both. I'm not here to discredit any of the Toy Stories because, just as a spoiler, in my personal ranking of Pixar, all 4 are in my top 10. I love them that much. I love all 4 of them. But Toy Story 2, oh my god, I think it's the funniest one of the 4. Mm-hmm. I think the opening, as a young boy watching this,
the opening
incredible.
The opening scene alone sets it so high. It is fantastic. I get goosebumps watching it. It's so good.
It's so good. Zurg, introducing him as like an actual character in this movie is so great. I love Zurg. The freaking Toy Barn stuff is great. Mm-hmm. You introduce the Woody's Roundup characters. Yep. They're awesome. The twist ending with Stinky Pete, like, I could go on and on. I love Buzz leading the other group, like the rescue mission to get Woody.
Fantastic.
One thing as it's not really a huge knock, but one knock on the Toy Story movies as a whole, too often they do separate Buzz and Woody. Like somehow in the story they get separated in almost every movie. Outside maybe the first one, they're kind of, the whole point is they're together. Learning to, and then the other ones kind of always separate them, but I think the second one does it the best because you see Buzz, like, you didn't really see him interact with all the other toys quite as much in the first movie. So you've seen him, like, take charge, lead this mission to get Woody is awesome. The stuff in the supermarket is great.
All the other Buzzes, it's great. Dude.
Yes, there's literally the whole movie just is, I think, awesome. The whole airport scene is great too. The luggage, I don't know. I absolutely love this movie. Again, it's not a knock on any other Toy Stories, but since I was a kid, I have always kind of preferred Toy Story 2. Like, I love, you get Jessie and Stinky Pete, obviously, and Bullseye. Like, yeah, just the whole Sarah McLachlan song during Jesse's.
Oh my god!
The title of the song.
Oh my god! Talk about tearjerker, dude. Talk about tearjerker. That whole thing. Oh my god!
It has everything you want in a Pixar movie and a Toy Story movie, and I don't understand what the criticisms are. Like, no one's like, oh, it sucks because of this. It's just like, oh, it's not as good as the first and third one, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why are we saying that?
Yeah. I think you're right, dude. I think anybody like shaking their head right now, go watch it again and go in with an open mind. It is fantastic, dude. Specifically, you talking about Buzz leading the rescue mission, fantastic. I think that's great. The introduction of so many characters and bringing them into the story, great. I think it does everything a good sequel does, which just takes like the initial story, the initial characters, and it expands on it, and it's a bigger story, it's a bigger deal. I just think it's a fantastic sequel, sincerely, and I say that because I think it's better than the first one. I really do. You convinced me. I think it's the best Toy Story.
I'm so glad that I was able to convince you that because I love it. And also, one of my most used quotes, I use it all the time, is, I don't want to use my head.
Yes.
Great.
Dude, I had the animated bloopers at the end back when they were still doing that.
Oh my gosh, yes. We could talk about that with a few of these. Monsters, Inc., Toy Story 2, like there were a few of these that are just so good.
We'll be back before bloopers. Andy gets home. It's like the stuff drawn on his...
Him like sitting in the tape. Like,
it gets so stuck, good. Some of those just seem so genuine. Like the bit of Jesse like throws Woody and supposed to yank him back by his string, but it breaks. I can't remember who voices Jesse, but she's cracking up. I'm like, either like...
I think it's Joan Cusack, maybe. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize to the Jesse actress. But
dude, great pull specifically to talk about the When Somebody Loved Me. Oh my gosh, dude. It's so sad. Yeah. It's sad, dude.
It is. Like it makes me want to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I sold toys. Like,
it really does. Like, I don't want to go into this franchise right now because it's so random. I don't even know if you've seen these movies. Have you seen The Brave Little Toasters?
Yes, but it literally has probably been 17 years since I've seen those.
Randomly, like last week, I listened to soundtracks and scores a lot. And
Same.
on the radio I had going on Spotify, some Brave Little Toaster songs came on. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's been a decade since I thought of these. And I remember, dude, like those movies really made me like feel sorry almost for like my toaster, or not literally my toaster, but like these inanimate objects or these tools that we use. Like it's crazy how movies can just pull these emotions out of you. It really is. Like and when a movie like Toy Story 2 comes along, it hits hard.
It does. So I'm happy to have it on my list. Again, I really wish the 3 movies that I wanted to walk out with were Monsters Inc., Toy Story 2, and Finding Nemo. And you've taken one of them, but I'm happy to have 2.
Okay.
Okay. And I think from here, I know we've taken a long time talking about our top of the list, and we probably get a little faster as we get into some of these. But now, my like Mount Rushmore level stuff is kind of largely off the board. So now I'm really interested to see what happens here. So
I agree. So that being said, I think I'm gonna save. I was torn between 2 for my next pick, but I obviously one of them is gonna last even after your next pick. So I think I'm gonna reach out a bit, and I'm gonna grab. I don't want to grab that though, because I know you're not gonna grab that. This is tough, dude. This is really tough. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take the movie that made me cry as an adult, and I'm gonna grab Inside Out at third overall.
That was my next one. You did it twice now. You've sniped me.
Wow. Okay. I really thought something else was going to be your next one, so I'm curious if you now take that or not. I think Inside Out, we watched it at a point in our lives where we were in the middle of like growing up, and that changes were happening. And I think that's kind of like what like the moral of that story is. The scene of Bing Bong made me bawl my eyes out. That was and it's so touching. And I really think like the biggest emotional hit for me from Inside Out was the realization that like probably all the happiest moments in your life kind of stemmed from something sad. That was a crazy realization. Like Riley was so sad at first, but then it led to joy. Like wow, that's really deep for again a kids movie. Like this, it's crazy what they can do, dude. I think the cast of characters is great. Again, an insanely creative concept. I just think Inside Out's fantastic. Yeah.
I don't remember. I know that when I first watched this was actually with you when we were in our freshman dorm. I don't know if you had seen it before that or not. No. If that was the first time you had watched it. Okay. So yeah, I think this is just as we were talking with Pixar. Like obviously it was like a elementary school girl or something that was moving and her friends. Like so we couldn't on paper we shouldn't be able to relate to that as two, college dudes watching this in our dorm room.
Right.
But just the way that it takes the themes and makes you feel like, like you said, it really hit us at a good point in our life, I think, as like we were just leaving home. Like it was the biggest change really in our life up to that point. Living away from home and all this stuff. And just like that, dealing with that kind of nostalgia I don't know. It was a very nostalgic movie. Super impactful. Like you said, the Bing Bong stuff is just rips your heart out. And I think maybe more than almost anything on this list, you mentioned it with Monsters Inc., but Inside Out is like genius level stuff with how intricate they are with like, here's how these memories work. I think it's so clever. How they're like, oh, like, what presidents do we need to keep? Oh, like, keep, Washington, Lincoln, or whatever, and get rid of the rest. Like, it's true how that stuff happens. Like, just like certain things are just like, your brain holds on to certain things, leaves others.
Triple dent.
I think it's really
this again.
It's so clever. That was gonna be I think what I picked next. So I'm gonna have to rearrange here, but great pick.
Thanks.
Yeah, love it.
That said, pal, you're on the clock. Your team is now on the clock.
So I showed my hand a little bit by saying all 4 Toy Stories are in my top 10. But I'm not necessarily wanting to double down this early when there's so many quality titles left on the board.
Right.
So I think I'm going to dip, even though I have at least a couple of those over what I'm about to say, I'm going to go ahead and take something different because I don't want to make my list too diluted like that or whatever. So I think next I'm taking... I'm going to take 2007's Ratatouille.
Wow. Okay.
Which might be that might even have surprised me not that long ago. But I think this movie is just, it's never necessarily been one of those, like the ones we kind of talked about that contends as like my personal favorite one.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I can't find a knock on this one. I think it's just so good across the board.
Right.
Maybe, and some people might disagree, I don't know if it's necessarily quite as purely emotional maybe as a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
It has some of that to it for sure.
Right.
But it's just, man, the food is just...
It looks good.
I don't know,
it looks good, dude.
One of the great food movies. Probably a Mount Rushmore food movie.
Honestly.
Mount Rushmore rat movie. Yeah.
Mount Rushmore rats with food movies.
I don't have any, honestly, deep thoughts about Ratatouille, but I think there are about 3 titles. If I was doing a tier list, which I think of a lot of things in terms of a tier list, and I think there are 3 titles that I'm kind of looking at right now that kind of fit on this tier of like a little under my personal favorites, but still like pretty much flawless, I almost want to say. So that's kind of where I'm at with Ratatouille, and I don't really have much else to say. So
I had Ratatouille on my backup list, which meant it wasn't necessarily going to be in my top 7, but if you picked one or 2 that was too much, then I was going to slot that in. I don't dislike Ratatouille. I do agree with you. I think it's kind of underrated. I don't know what to say that's bad about it. I do think specifically, like I think what you said is correct, that maybe it's not as emotional as, Finding Nemo or Inside Out or whatever. But specifically, Ego's like story is pretty good. He recalls back to being a boy and his mom cooking his favorite meal and stuff, and now he's grown up and found joy in it again. I think it's cool. Yeah, I think Ratatouille is perhaps underrated, and I think it's a very good pick. I don't hate it this early. I don't.
Cool.
Okay. Well, that said, my team is now on the clock, and what I'm going to do is, because I don't want both of these titles to slide by any longer, I am struggling between 2 titles here. They can be pretty clear here in a moment which 2 I'm struggling between.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to go the original. I think I'm going to take Toy Story.
Okay.
And I do think it's something to say about it being the first movie in this entire legacy, and it's still holding up as well as it does. Mm-hmm. Like you said, maybe some like kind of get swept under the rug compared to others, like WALL-E. I think kind of just get swept under the rug. That's not to say it's bad. It's just to say it's not a standout. Their first one being what I think a lot of people would say is probably their favorite one, is any of the Toy Stories, really. But the first Toy Story, dude, introducing Buzz and Woody, I love, there's so many quotes in this movie. Like, the style of writing back then, I don't know what it is. But, like, Woody, like, just shut up, you idiot! Like, screaming at Buzz that he's an idiot. I think it's hilarious. Like, this is a kid's movie.
So, you are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
Very well. He does the alien song.
And then... honestly, though, the best part of that, like the fact that line, which is one of my all-time favorite lines, is followed up immediately
by
with,
another banger.
Yeah, well, good riddance, Yeleni. Oh my gosh.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
2, it's incredible. You're right. It's the writing in this movie is just phenomenal. It's great.
I think it is. I think it's set up. I mean, obviously, hindsight's 20/20, but it set up such a big universe that of characters who each at different times has shined in different areas. I think the whole cast of characters is great. I think Buzz, like the central part of Buzz's story, like figuring out like who he is, I think it's fantastic. Whenever he tries to climb up the window and fly, and he freaking breaks his arm off or whatever, it's sad. You're like, oh crap! Like you feel sad for Buzz, and then you have the great.
Dude, and oh my gosh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I don't want you to forget.
I was just thinking of all that, like. The whole soundtrack to that movie, like obviously you have like the "You Got a Friend in Me" and stuff, but then the strange things that happen to me, like as Buzz is dealing with all that. It's so good. Yeah. The soundtrack's awesome.
The soundtrack in that part where Buzz is like, no, like I know who I am and I'm gonna do this. The lyrics are like, it can't be true. I'll fly if I want to. Like it's just, and then it doesn't. He absolutely crashes. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I think it's a nice wake-up call that we've all gotten at some point in our lives of like, well, maybe not. Mm-hmm. And then you get the fantastic bit of, don't you see that? I am Mrs. Nesbit. Fantastic. It's great, dude.
Great stuff.
If you don't like Toy Story, I don't know what you're
We're not aiming for the truck. Another favorite line.
Fantastic.
So many great lines.
Again, you want to talk about the soundtrack? Dude, listen. This is going to sound weird to you if you don't ever listen to scores or soundtracks. Toy Story is one of my favorite soundtracks, scores. Honestly, I don't know if there's a technical difference or not. That scene where they're on the rocket, and again, talk about an intense thing. They're strapped to a rocket trying to catch up to the moving truck, and then they flash over and they think the rocket's gonna explode. It's intense, dude. But the music in that scene, whenever they start gliding, oh my gosh, it's fantastic, dude. It's fantastic.
Yeah. As a kid too, watching that, like you just like I wanted all the toys. I wanted RC.
Really,
I wanted Buzz and Woody. It's awesome. Honestly, it's almost asinine that we lasted this long without talking about Toy Story 1. I know we kind of did when I took Toy Story 2 maybe a little earlier than some people would. But Toy Story started it all, and even just like this style of animation, this whole computer animated stuff is just, and it does hold up so well. You can see its age when you compare it to Toy Story 3, Toy Story 4.
Right.
You can tell like it does look older, but like, yeah, I mean, you got to cut it some slack. This is the first one.
Right.
So like, I don't know. It's so good, and I think it strengthens your list just to have it on there. So
yeah,
kudos to you.
Thanks, pal. That said, your team's down the clock. You got one?
I know. We're getting to some tough titles that I'm having to go between here. And there's a few that are low on my personal list that I'm like, I think this would be good for most people to have on a list at all. So I'm going back and forth between whether I want to pick for me or pick for what I think the general people would want.
Right.
So I'm going to actually grab a title right now that is lower on my list. This would not be on my top 7 personally. It's outside of my top 10.
Whoa.
But I think for my list, I'm taking it because I think a lot of people are high on it, and I don't dislike it.
Don't do it to me.
I'm going to go ahead and take Cars.
Okay. Woo! That's still a great pick. That's not what I was worried you were picking. But
I don't know if it's I promise you I'm surprised myself right now because this was not even on my short list of like potential ones to take. But looking at some titles, there are a lot of sequels that I definitely kind of want to talk about or pick, but I don't want my list to be like 3 movies and their sequels.
Right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and take Cars because it is a little different. This is literally on my personal list right now. I have it at 15, which feels a little crazy. It's not one that's, again, kind of like Ratatouille, never been like my number 1 favorite. But I think for a lot of people, like my cousin who's a few years younger than me, it was his favorite.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people it was, and I think Owen Wilson as Lightning McQueen is awesome.
It's great.
It's so good.
Larry the Cable Guy.
It's probably it's honestly probably the least annoying Larry the Cable Guy's ever been.
Honestly, true.
I don't know. Just the shtick can just get a little old, and I think I won't even talk about Cars 2 right now, but I think that kind of shows you what happens when it's turned up to the extreme. But I think it's just the right enough with Mater.
Okay.
The Radiator Spring stuff's fun. It's just kind of. It's funny. My wife, often she goes to bed before I do, and she likes to have a movie on while she goes to sleep. But she's extremely picky. She wants nothing sad, so something like Finding Nemo, which starts sad, is completely out, and nothing with anything scary. So, nothing where a villain is like even scary at all. So Cars is what her go-to often is. That, and she'll like throw on Despicable Me sometimes in a rotation with that as well.
Despicable Me's great. Okay.
A couple movies that are just like not scary, not really sad. But Cars, it's just kind of there. But I think there's enough in it that's just kind of fun. A lot of the characters are kind of wacky but fun. The turn right to go left is another thing I just love to throw out there randomly.
Yeah. Doc's a great character. Yeah.
Doc is great. Yeah. Freaking Chick Hicks might be my favorite.
Oh,
I say Kachiga daily. My wife hates it, but we go with it. So I'm surprised myself taking this even this early, but I just thought it might be a good title to kind of diversify my list a little bit. And I wasn't exactly sure where you would be on it, so I didn't know when it might run the risk of being taken off the board. So there you go.
Understandable. Cars was another, and you have now taken 3 out of my backup category.
Interesting. So I probably shouldn't have taken this early, but
I never expected to take Toy Story 2. Because like I said, that was like, I figured you'd take it kind of high, and as much as I may agree with you now, I was like, I think he's going to take it, whatever. Toy Story 3, Cars, and Ratatouille were my 3, like, okay, if my first picks are gone, that's,
okay.
I don't think it's a bad pick at all.
Fair.
I think it's great. I think it's definitely the best one of the trilogy. Again, a very creative world setup. The story's great. the character growth and stuff. I think it's just a great movie overall. Cars may again, it may be one that like maybe a lot of people don't like consider in their top, but I think it should be.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
I think it's a tier. I don't think it's in a top even for me, but again, it's kind of harmless. Like there's not much you can just like hate. Whereas the sequels, I think there's a lot you could pick apart with those. But Cars it's fun, honestly, and it's, I don't know, good story.
Okay.
So.
That said, I'm gonna take, but I was worried you were gonna take because you said it was low for you, but it's higher for most.
I know you're gonna take
I'm in the most category, buddy. Give me the movie that makes me cry every single time. Give me Up. Up just crushes you in the first 5 minutes. And the first time you watch Up, you're so high. It's like, oh my gosh, you get to this love story of the two people. You see them meet as like 10-year-olds, and then they get married, try to have kids, they buy their first house, all this stuff, and then boom. Like, it hits, dude. It hits hard. And I agree with you that the beginning of Up is so good that the rest of the movie almost can't live up to the rest of it, to the beginning. I get that. I still don't think it's like a full tier or 2 tiers below. The villain is the villain's not great, but it's kind of cool that it's like his childhood hero and all that stuff. I think that's a good tie-in. I think his whole premise of I'm going to fulfill my promise and we're going to go to Paradise Falls, I think that's very sweet, very heartfelt. Russell's hilarious. I think Doug's funny. Kevin the bird's funny. I just think it's funny. I don't know. I just think it's really good. I think it's really pretty. It's a really like well animated movie. The jungle scenes are all really cool. I don't know, dude. I don't really have a whole lot of bad things to say about this movie at all. I think again, like the final scene of he leaves the house behind to save Russell. He saves Russell over basically like everything, his memories with his wife, everything. That life he previously built, he saves Russell over that. But then you see like the house landed in the perfect spot of where they painted it originally. It's so heartfelt, dude. I love it.
I think there are definitely some poetic moments to Up that are very touching and very satisfying. And ultimately, on my personal ranking, which maybe this makes no sense, I have it 2 slots above Cars, which I just took. So I'm not like out on Up. But again, that's at 13 on my personal Pixar ranking. So it's just, I think people are a little too horny for Up. I just.
What a way!
Ever since it, I just feel like it's in so many people's like top 3, top 5, and it's just, to me, it's just not, it doesn't quite go that high. I do think, I have made this argument, but I do think it's almost to the point, so many people have made it, saying, oh, the first 15 minutes are so good, the rest of the movie suffers. I do think that's doing a disservice a little bit to the movie, because to me, I don't think it's just that first 15 minutes where you're seeing, like, his life, with his wife and stuff first. I think it's more the first 30, 40 minutes that are super strong to me.
Okay.
I think seeing everything, seeing the adventure start, seeing Russell like come to his house, I think all that is like phenomenal. I love all, the house lifting up and going, I love all that. It's kind of when they get into the jungle or whatever and like stuff starts from there that it doesn't fall apart for me. It doesn't reach the same levels of high for me.
The second act falls off for sure. I give you that.
And I think it's not a very memorable villain or anything. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like, it's not like terrible. It's just, again, I don't hate Up. I think I just like am always been a little confused by how much a lot of people just love it. But I do understand a lot of the sentimentality and how emotional that first beginning is, and the characters are fun. Nothing against any of the, core characters there. So I don't hate the pick at all, especially at this point. I didn't know. I figured you were going to put it on your list, and I did not plan at all to touch it myself. And it just kind of right there, literally right in the middle, kind of what I've seen where Pixar is. There's about half the list underneath it and about half the list above it. So by no means a bad movie. Just never been a personal favorite, but that's all I got to say.
That's fine. I think you didn't say anything egregious. You didn't say anything that I feel the need to argue with. I think that's fine, fella. So now moving on to your 5th pick.
Yeah. So I've got 3 picks left. and I'm bouncing between about 4 movies, so this is interesting. A few of them that I don't think you're going to touch, so I feel like I'm kind of safe to take them. So I might just go ahead and take... I don't know if you would even do this, but I think I'm just going to take the opportunity to nab Toy Story 3.
Yep.
I think this is... Man, I go back and forth. As I said earlier, Toy Story 2 has kind of long since been my favorite Toy Story movie. And man, I bounce back and forth between 1 and 3 over which one I think is better. I feel like it's whatever one I just watched or something.
That's very fair.
They're so... Man, Toy Story 3, like the whole like prison break thing, it's like, man, this is like a Shawshank Redemption level, like prison break. It's awesome.
It's so
like,
good, dude.
That whole story's great. Like, man... I feel like an idiot for thinking there as they're going into like the incinerator, like this is the end of the toys.
Right.
They're about to die.
We really thought they were gonna like burn alive.
Yeah.
But you
like,
did.
Like that's so stupid. But the movie sets it up that way. It's like that's how they're gonna write these characters off.
So intense.
And man, like I kind of like Up. I think it's a disservice to Up to only talk about the first 15 minutes. I think it can also be kind of a disservice to Toy Story 3 to only talk about the ending because of how I think that's what people talk about.
Sure.
Because the rest of the movie is still so strong, I think, overall. I think it's really fun to see them just, like, thrown into this daycare, like, you know, like, just the kid just going crazy with them and stuff. It's awesome. Bonnie, like, seeing her toys is cool. But, man, at the same time as where you can't only talk about the ending, you can't not talk about the ending, too, because it is just, man. It came at the right time, you know, for people who grew up with the Toy Story movies and like, you know, they're as much your toys as they are Andy's, as weird as that is to say. That you kind of grew up with them. And then like having him give them away is just, oh man. It's a perfect ending to what could have been a trilogy forever, and a lot of people think it should have been. Whether I'm in the vast minority or not, think Toy Story 4 is still a beautiful movie. I do still think the first 3 are stronger overall. So I'm nabbing Toy Story 3 here. I think it probably means likely that Toy Story 4 won't be drafted by either of us, so I do just want to give it a shout out because there's a lot of things I love about that movie. But yeah, so Toy Story 3 is the pick here, and I'm happy with that. So
I think it's great, dude. I said whenever I was picking Toy Story, it was between Toy Story and Toy Story 3. I think what you said is perfect, that which one I like better is probably whichever one I watch last, because I think they're both great. Talk about another tearjerker. Whenever after the incinerator scene, which was so intense, you know, Andy does end up donating the toys to Bonnie, and whenever she makes Woody wave at Andy, that hit, dude. It's great. I think you said this again, but the whole like prison riot thing with Buzz now turned, like Buzz is against them, like whatever. I think it's great. It is just overall.
How funny is the freaking Miss Potato Head on the tortilla?
That's fantastic.
So good.
I love it too. Whenever he's like on the cucumber, and he says, "I feel fresh, healthy. It's terrible." That's fantastic. Anytime you try to be
Spanish Buzz is fun.
Yeah, Spanish Buzz.
It's great.
El Baqueo. Yeah, I think he's great. Great pick. I got nothing but good things to say about Toy Story 3. Kind of crazy that it went this late, but I mean, if you look at our other titles and our explanations, I think it makes sense. That said, I've got one title. I know one of my last 2 picks. I'm trying to decide if I don't take it now, if there's any chance you take it next, and weighing the consequences of that. I kind of don't think there is. So I might just go ahead and take it, just because I want to. I just want to make sure I have this. I'm gonna take Bug's Life.
Wow.
I think we recently rewatched Bug's Life, probably literally last week, and it's obviously like the central story of you let one ant stand up and they all might stand up. I think it's a fantastic, like really deep rooted story that again, like adults are gonna be like, wow, like they hit on multiple levels. I think Flick is a great protagonist in that you could I think he's kind of relatable. You know, he kind of screws things up, but he's good hearted. He means well, but he's kind of just screwing things up. The cast is great. You got what's his name that we mentioned earlier. He's the flea, the like leader of the circus. I think he does well in that role.
Yeah.
The caterpillar dude. After rewatching it, the caterpillar, I can't remember his name. Gotta be one of my favorite characters in the whole movie. Any line he says is funny. I am a good little bumblebee. He's so stupid, but it's great. It's great, dude.
Yeah.
And I told you this after we watched it. I said I do think they reuse the little like anthem, the theme of the movie, if you will. I think they kind of use it a little too much. They use it a lot throughout the movie, but that's not to say it's not a great instrumental anthem. The orchestra, whatever it was that was behind this movie, they cooked. They did a really good job, I think. And I just think it's a good movie. I think it's really underrated for people. I think it gets swept under the rug, and it really shouldn't.
This is one that I admittedly need to. I'm way overdue a rewatch on A Bug's Life. I watched it a decent bit as a kid, and I legitimately could not tell you the last time. It has to be 15 years since I've seen this movie. So I do remember overall like the story structure and stuff, and I remember liking a lot of because Flick was like an innovator or something,
right.
he's always. I thought those things he was building and stuff were cool. Mm-hmm. I think the last act is exciting and fun. Mm-hmm. I love all the circus characters are just so fun.
You fired!
The ladybug, those are I think the best part of the movie. The stick bug, I don't remember what his name was either, right. But all of this are great.
Yeah.
This is a little lower in my personal ranking. I think just because I haven't seen it in so long, it's just like not a ton of stuff is standing out for me. Mm-hmm. But I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I do, well, if anything bad, I think kind of like Toy Story, this one does look like a 90s movie.
Yeah,
I think,
for sure.
Watching it, it's not like you said, Up, like these movies have these beautiful colors and stuff, it's kind of ugly. Like Bug's Life, it's kind of puts you to sleep almost with the browns and
it's kind of
it's not very pretty.
It's kind of all the same color too, it's not like that colorful,
yeah.
Which it's 98,
yeah.
It's I get that. But yeah.
Right, exactly. I hate even bringing that up. It's just it's not appealing to look at, whereas so many of these Pixar movies are.
Yeah, that's fair.
But still, that's not a huge knock on it. And again, it's 98, so Pixar's second movie. So yeah, I think it's a good pick, and I like the representation of something such a throwback like that. So yeah. Good job there.
Thanks.
So now, oh man, still between 3 for these last 2 slots.
That's crazy.
I'm feeling.
That's crazy.
Well, I mean, as far as things that I'd be happy to have on my 7, because there's one title that I am confident you're not going to take that I could say for my 7th pick, and I think that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Man, I don't love doing this because I have 7 titles here, and a couple of them might be within franchises, but I'm taking a personal pick here because, do I want to do this?
Yeah, you do.
Man, I'll explain my reasoning after the 7 for one other movie that almost took this slot, but I don't think it's going to get my 7 at all. 6, I'm taking Monsters University.
I've heard nothing but good things. I don't have anything to say on it because I haven't seen it, but I've heard nothing but good things. Take it away.
I think this is my pick for most underrated Pixar movie. I don't know. I've seen it, I think, 3 times, and every time I'm just that's really good. I think some of the disappointment might be that people for years and years and years wanted a true sequel, and I think that's fair to be we got a prequel. It's not a continuation of the story from the first one, so maybe they were disappointed just in the premise alone.
Right. Which
is fair if you're in that camp. I would have still loved to see a sequel to the first one, but man, it's such a good college movie of I don't know. It's so good. Mike and Sully are still both so strong. Both, again, the voice work is John Goodman and Billy Crystal again. Nice. So they're great.
Right.
So many of the little, I do think sure, the other little side characters aren't the most memorable ones ever, but man, there's so many funny parts here, and the whole it's kind of like a fraternity games type thing that gets set up, so you have this big tournament of games and stuff, and it's so much fun. And Mike kind of takes more of the center character in this, whereas the first one, if you had to pick between the two, it feels more like Sully's movie with his relationship with Boo and stuff. This one is more Mike, I would say, even though they're both, again, very prominent. But I think this is the most underrated. It's his number 10 on my pure Pixar ranking list. So again, there's going to be there might be I think there's one title that's not going to get played that's above this, and that would be Toy Story 4. I have just a slot or 2 above this. Which I love, but I'm not going to take 3 Toy Stories on my 7.
Gotcha, yeah.
And I just think this is so underrated, and I don't know. I just love, I love these 2 characters so much. I just kind of, I don't know. I didn't expect to take this necessarily, but I'm happy it kind of fell to me here. So
I think it's great. That's probably There's a couple of these I want to rewatch at some point, but as far as like I haven't seen and I want to watch, by far Monsters University is my number one. Like I need to watch that. I've seen little bits and pieces of it. The little theme of it, like the theme of the movie, I've heard, and it's really good. I think it's cool because don't you see Randall? Isn't Randall involved in this movie as well?
Yeah.
So
he's not super prominent, but he's there, and I love Randall. He's so great.
Yeah.
As a character, so yeah.
So yeah, definitely it's high on my like overall. I need to watch
it. I'd be anxious to hear your thoughts, and I think you would enjoy it. Like, it's not the first one, and I don't think anyone expected it to be, which is fine. But it's quietly like a very solid, fun movie. Like it's good.
I think that's the thing, and I'm sure throughout the history of this show we will talk about this a lot. I think it's a con. I think it's what a lot of people do incorrectly about movies. Is Toy Story 1 was fantastic. So then they go into Toy Story 2 expecting at least that, if not better. And then the moment it's not, whether it's 10 minutes in, like, ugh, and you kind of check out. You can't do that. You have to go in. We've said it before about the next Superman movie. Henry Cavill, literally, for both of us, did a 180-degree turn for how we felt about Superman as a character. So going into the next Superman movie, the fact that it's not Henry Cavill, I'm like, ugh, I hate that. But you can't, like, well, that means this one's gonna suck. You can't do that. You gotta be able.
Yeah, we're all guilty of it, but yeah, definitely. If you've never visited Monsters University because you any of those feelings, or if you haven't seen it in a while, give it another shot. Yeah.
I'm gonna take one that I'll be honest, I never saw me taking this. It's one that, like you said, I have not watched in probably at least 10 years. And I definitely need to rewatch. But the more I'm sitting here looking at it, the more I'm like, from what I remember of that, it was great. And we are on our 7th picks here, so this, maybe we're getting a little scarce. I am going to take WALL-E.
Yeah. Okay.
I think WALL-E, and again, I haven't seen it in so long, but from what I remember it being one of the first like pretty Pixar movies. I remember it being really pretty. As far as like the animation goes. I think I'm leaning really heavily here on like the central story, or honestly just pick like the individual stories. Humans in the future got chairs that run around and now they're all fat. That's happening now, bro. We're getting there. It's so true. We trashed Earth so much and now we have to live on some spaceship in the middle of the universe. Yeah, that tracks. That's gonna happen. I think it's very realistic. Wally being alone, just doing his thing, and then here comes Eve, and they're like, I guess love story is the word, but like their relationship is like awesome to watch. Because at the end he gets like reset, so he forgets about Eve, and she knows him, and now she's trying to get it out of him. That little thing alone is like that whole freaking Nicholas Sparks movie. Isn't it a Nicholas Sparks movie where somebody gets amnesia and they're trying to make him remember?
I'm sure probably 3 of them. Yeah,
it's great. I think WALL-E. Another thing about WALL-E, I talked about how pretty it was. I remember the soundtrack being really good as well. So while it is one that I haven't seen in a while and one that I definitely need to rewatch, I'm gonna take WALL-E to round out this list.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I honestly, if you look at a lot of just like random like ranking Pixar movies, this like tops some of them. This is number 1 on a lot of lists.
It's a sleeper, I think.
I think it's different for Pixar in a sense where it's not really, there's some humor and stuff there, but it's not like a Toy Story where like the writing is like comedic gold or anything.
Right.
But it's not really, it's not a knock on the movie because it's not what it's going for. And I think, like you said, some of the themes it has in there are very just prevalent today. The stuff with especially, like the waste and what we're doing to our planet. And then just the love story between Eve and Wally is so good. And man, like that whole, I forget, this is another one I'm way overdue a rewatch on this one. It's been a long time. I thought about taking this myself, and then I was like, I don't have a lot to say about it because it's just been so long since I've seen it. But that first like 30, 40 minutes, I feel like is like no dialogue, which is crazy for a kids movie. I can't think of another kids movie that does that. Which, I mean, WALL-E almost isn't a kids movie. It's, I don't know. But it is, like you said, beautiful. And as far as critical acclaim, this might be like up there as like top 3 Pixar. So it might be a steal that you got it this late. I didn't feel right taking it myself just because I didn't really have much to say. And I don't have very vivid memories, a lot of it. I can't even really tell you much of like the plot and what happens throughout. I just remember kind of the themes more so, which I think is telling because that's what the strength of the movie is those themes. So Good pick.
It is kind of polarizing. I just now searched, and I did just click 2 different links. But one link literally had it as the highest, as the #1 Pixar movie. The next link had it as the 14th. So I think it is kind of like it's all over the place.
Yeah, I think it's polarizing. Yeah.
So I'm happy to have it on there. I will. I'm not ashamed. Give me Wall-E.
Don't be. No, I think it's a good pick. I like it a lot. Good pick there. So
Rounding off
we
your
both have
list.
one pick left, correct?
That's you. That's only you, pal.
Okay, so I'm bouncing between 2 titles here, and I'm not at a risk of you. Neither one of these end up on yours because they're both 2 you've never seen. But I think this pick, which probably should have been taken a little sooner, but I knew you haven't seen it, so I just let it slide. I'm gonna grab Coco for my last pick.
I think it's gonna help you out a lot.
Yeah, this movie it's another tearjerker. It is very beautiful in its colors and its themes and what it's saying about family and just kind of identity, music. It's great. It's another one. I've said this about so many of them. I don't know if I've seen this since like the year after it came out or something. I think I saw it like right when it came out, and I think I rewatched it once like within that first year or something.
Okay.
So it came out in 2017, so I think it's probably about 2018. I'm assuming that I have watched it last, which isn't like as far back as some of the other ones we've talked about.
Right.
But it's one that I feel like I could probably rewatch again, pick up some new things. But man, especially the family stuff, it's up there with like Incredibles as far as like how impactful some of those relationships and things that goes into are. Very beautiful movie. A lot of people this is like up there for them.
Right.
It's right around that number 10 mark for me, personally, as far as all these movies. But again, that's like honestly the 17th best Pixar movie is better than most animated kids movies that come out.
Yeah, very true.
So, and I think Coco might be like, again, I've said it before, but Toy Story 4 was 2019, and I loved that movie. But that one and Coco, to me, of the past, like, decade, basically, are like the 2 that are, to me, are like super strong. Okay. There's been a few disappointments for me within the last, 5 to 8 years or so. But that one, I think, is super strong, and it's a good addition to Pixar, and I think you should definitely check it out when you can, because it's worth a watch at least once.
Right.
So yeah, I'm happy to end up with it 7th pick. Again, I could have taken this sooner, but because I know you hadn't seen it, I just went ahead and kept pushing it down the list. But.
Right. Yeah, I do think that's going to help you a lot. I just said that Wall-E is on my list of like I want to rewatch. Monsters University is probably still the highest of ones I haven't seen I need to watch. I would say Coco is second for me. I do want to watch Coco. I've heard nothing but good things. I saw like 30 seconds of it. It was on like the TV in the waiting room of one of our daughter's doctor's appointments, and I started watching it.
You've seen it?
Yeah. It sucked, but it looked really pretty. It looked like I don't know. And Pixar is obviously great for that. I think they make really good looking movies.
It's a beautiful movie, and like the whole like Day of the Dead type stuff,
right.
And just like it plays into so much. It's very culturally significant, I know, and it's just like kind of a cool window into that for people who aren't as familiar with some of those traditions and stuff. It's kind of a cool way to see some of that, and also just it's very relatable as well. So it's a great movie.
All right, well, pal, that means. Do you want to talk more, real quick? Because you said you was one movie you wanted to talk about that didn't make the list. Do you want to talk about that now and then review our 7 a piece?
Yeah, I mean, sure. The one that barely missed out for me was Inside Out 2. Okay. Because you grabbed the first one, and I knew you hadn't seen it, I knew I could grab it late, and my plan for much of that was to grab it. And now, even looking at my list right now, I'm questioning whether I should have taken Cars, because that's just like, it's low on my personal list, and I think it's I really wish kind of had Inside Out.
I think a lot of people's have it pretty high though.
Yeah, Cars was definitely more of a pick for like if people are going to look at these lists, and whereas most of my list is like here's my movies. Cars isn't. It's never like one that I've claimed as a personal favorite, but it's one I acknowledge is fun. But where Inside Out 2 though, I don't think it's quite as good as the first movie as far as just pure emotional. But man, it's still very clever and just impactful with the things it's saying, and anxiety and some of these other emotions are just like it. as an adult watching it, me and my wife were both just like, wow, like that's great. Like a little nostalgia as a character, and so many embarrassment, like so many things that just were so like, yeah, that's how it feels, or that's how they used that perfectly, or wrote this into the story so perfectly. So I think it was a very, very good sequel. So it kind of hurts I kind of ran out of room there, and if I had to reshuffle things, I might bump Cars out and slide that in somewhere. But overall, I'm still happy with what I got. So yeah, we can review our sevens now.
That being said, I'll make a nice little graphic. We can tweet them and have them up or whatever. But Pixar giraffe style, give me Incredibles, Finding Nemo, Inside Out, Toy Story, Up, Bug's Life, and WALL-E. In that order.
All right, and my top 7 are Monsters, Inc., Toy Story 2, Ratatouille, Cars, Toy Story 3, Monsters University, and Coco.
I think it's a tough run, buddy. I think we have some killer drafts here, honestly. I think you could look at bits and pieces of either one and say, I like that chunk, I like that chunk. Like, like you having both Monster Universe, you having both Monsters, you having 2 Toy Stories, that's crazy weight. Like, you got a lot of weight in that punch.
But that might, at the same time, that means yours is a little bit more diverse as far as just, different titles. So that might be stronger. So we'll see. Hopefully people can, find these and weigh in, because I'm anxious to hear what other people's are, what other people's number 1 is even. I love hearing, if someone has a special number 1 or something that's special to them. It's always fun to hear, so.
Right. Let us know your thoughts. Tweet us at TisItIsPod. Tis it is. Tis it is a podcast.
Tis it is.
Let us know.
Tis it is.
We'll put out a nice little graphic, and you can tell us, you can pick them apart, tell us what you'd have where, and tell us who you think won. And this is far from the last time we're going to talk about Pixar on this show, but I think we started off with a banger. And, yeah, anything else from you, my good man Treads?
I don't think so. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to all the future convos.
All right. Well, that's all from me. So I'm going to say peace, baby, and Treads is going to say...
All right. Well, see you later.